This one comes from News Wave, whatever. Um, more than 20 nations back safe passage in Strait Hormuz. Over 20 countries pledged support for safe navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, condemning Iran's attacks and calling for the adherence to international law. Blah, blah, more than 20 countries. Why would you state that twice? In a joint statement, the leaders of 22 nations condemned recent attacks by Iran or on unarmed commercial vessels and civilian infrastructure. The countries include United Arab Emirates, uh, Bahrain, the
United Arab Emirates.
Emirates. Ah, thank you. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Canada, and Australia. Quote, we express our readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the strait, unquote, the statement read. The nations also call on Iran to cease its threats and attempts to block the strategic waterway. They demand compliance with United Nations Security Council Resolution 2817. Quote, freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle of international law, unquote, the statement emphasized. The countries called for an immediate moratorium on attacks on civilian oil and gas installations. I think they did attack like an unarmed vessel. I could be wrong. Don't quote me. Just scrolling through X. They welcomed the International Energy Alliance decision to authorize a release of strategic petroleum reserves. The statement added that steps would be taken to stabilize energy markets, including working to increase output. Quote, maritime security and freedom of navigation benefits all countries, unquote, it concluded. Okay, so there's a couple things that the article didn't state. Now, before, I want to say like last week, obviously we've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz for a couple weeks now, and about 20% of the world's energy comes through there, and it's being halted. President Trump, he's already sending our military there to try to, and there's like an island nearby or something like that, to try to
Mm-hmm.
help get ships through. Trump called on other countries, I believe in NATO, or he could have just called on what we consider close allies. I'm going to call out NATO. Be like, hey, we're going to need help with, making sure Iran doesn't attack our ships. And at the time, if a random TikTok is to believe, well, a couple random TikToks are to be believed, most, if not all countries were like, nah, we're not going to do that. But if I'm not mistaken, they told Trump in secret, and then Trump, I think it's funny. Like a handful of days ago, was like, I called it, and if we pay NATO and we give countries some of our military stuff, and in times of need they wouldn't help us. So and I think that was strategic because he kind of just called it out. Granted, I don't think I'm very not really very anti-war. I do believe there's some instances where we might need to do something, but I kind of like he was like we pay NATO to be part of here, and NATO won't help us. You know what I mean? So I think this is kind of a bunch of countries being like, no, we'll help. We promise we will. Now, again, that's 20 countries. Um, and I think how was gonna put this? How am I gonna put this? Me personally, I find it weird that they weren't going to help in the first place. We're part of NATO, fine, whatever. They don't want to be involved in military action, but they would absolutely involve our military that's like stationed there to be a part of their actions. A little hypocritical, but we are the greatest country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, that's like again, we say that's 20% of the world's oil. Like I get like not wanting to go to war, but I'm not trying to be like Nick Fuentes, where it's like like strength and numbers, we need to overpower them. But to an extent, if you have most of the world being like, "Hey, stop bombing our ships," in theory, Iran
Yeah.
would be like, "Well, we probably should stop bombing their ships because they might start attacking us." You know what I mean? Like the might of the world versus the might of Iran.
Yeah.
Um, again, pretty anti-war, but here's my issue with all this: is like Now, granted, I will at least applaud President Trump for being like calling out like, hey, we pay, they're not helping, even though they more or less signed a contract saying we would help. I think the problem is now again, pretty anti-war, pretty anti-intervention, but if we're going to do something, such as, you know, bombing a government so that they will use our dollar, we can't be half-assing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We either not intervene at all and try to find our own way, which I thought we were probably going to try to do with, Venezuela when we took our oil refineries or whatever back from there. But it just seems like they're playing like they're playing with Iran in a way. You know what I mean? Like it seems like, yeah, we bombed your government and your people in power, and we're not gonna really do anything while you cut off 20% of the world's oil, essentially world's energy, and you know what I mean. It's like it's either we either got to commit to it or we're not. Now, granted, it does seem like we're kind of committing to it by calling out other countries in NATO, and they've, as stated in the article, they will be sending their own forces to kind of monitor what's going on. But now granted, I don't think Trump was like, I'm not going to state that Trump was thinking about this, but when I was doing some research for this was that like this is called well, this is an example of economy of scale. You ever heard of the it's like an essay called "I Am Pencil"?
Yes.
Okay, where essentially like to make a pencil, it takes like 8 countries working together. Well,
Yep.
I don't think it requires it, but modern day pencils require need have like 8 countries working together.
Yep.
I think this is an example of that. I'm not saying Trump was thinking about this, but in order for the world to get 20% of its energy back, it needs the world to help out. You know what I mean? Like we rely on this energy. We should all be trying to be like, hey, stop attacking civilians, or we're gonna do something. You know what I mean? Show of force kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and the problem is, like, with the whole half-assing thing, it's either we're gonna stay out of it or really have to commit to it. Is that people are feeling it now? Like I'm looking at gas prices. It's March. I don't normally see $3 to $4 gas prices till like May. Generally, I'm seeing it now. Like normally, like $30 will get me through a week and a half. $30 gets me half a week right now. So, and again, if we're going to get a little political on this is not going to bode well for the midterms. So it's either something needs to be committed now, or we need to back up and figure out what we're going to do with Venezuela.
Hmm. No, I agree.
Sweet, wonderful. So
Yeah, sorry, I've just got nothing else to add.
all good. So I got some other
pretty
notes
good
here.
comprehensive.
I think so oil prices are going up because I took a note here. Because the price of elasticity the price of elasticity for energy is quite low in the short term, meaning consumers cannot easily find substitutes or reduce usage immediately. This is a tax that hits everyone. That's a note I took, which it makes sense. World's 20% of the world's energy goes up in price. I can't just switch to corn oil and call it a day. So that's another thing I brought up. I see people on like TikTok and Facebook, and they brought up like you like oil like gas companies are ripping you off because they're charging you like $4 a gallon for oil or whatever that they bought like 6 months ago. And surface level, yeah, that makes sense. The problem is they're still buying oil. Prices are up now because they're still buying oil now. Because it's not like, again, 20% of the world's energy just got cut off. That the demand for that energy is still here. Supply of that energy has gone down 20%. That is economics 101. Low supply, high demand equals higher prices. Yes, you're not going to see this oil that they're buying now for 4 to 6 months, but they're paying for it now. So they theoretically need the extra money. They're probably wealthy people, but that's beside the point. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
This shock can trigger, quote, cost push inflation, unquote, where external forces push up the cost of production and transportation across the entire economy, leading to a general rise in prices. We've talked about that plenty, and I've been sick for 2 weeks. Prices of everything is going to go up because the price of gasoline's going up. That means transportation's going to go up. Transportation goes up. Everything that's being transported has to go up to accommodate for the increased price of said transportation, because those prices went up means you're going to have to pay more of it. What happens when you got to pay more of it? Means you got to buy less of it, or you got to find substitutes. Problem is, substitutes also need to be transported. Those will go up, and on top of that, on recent reports, 50% of people's wages are about to be garnished for student loans. I think we're gonna hit a struggle bus soon. Now, probably not this segment I was thinking this was gonna go into, but if we're gonna get into politics here, I can absolutely be wrong. I will fully accept I can be wrong. But at least growing up, and with like the amount of like economics, at least from the stuff I've studied, when it comes to economics, separating based on Democratic and Republicans, Democrats are very much so just fix the problem now, we'll deal with the consequences later. Essentially, just keep fixing it now, would kick the can down the road. Great example was the student loan forgiveness stuff. We'll tell people like, hey, forgive your student loans, and for a lot of people, student loans were forgiven. Kicking the can down the road, now it's been 5 years, well, people are about to have their wages garnished because the government told them they didn't have to pay back their student loans. Stuff like that. Another example is during the Bill Clinton administration, the whole thing when it comes to buying a house, like you would need like 20% down before they would even consider giving you the loan. Well, during the Bill Clinton administration, they made it so you can do 0 down. The philosophy was not enough people are buying homes, so if we make the 20% down to 0% down, more people didn't have to build up the money just so they can buy a house. Great. Fixing a problem now, consequences later. Well, people, what's called like, they know that people don't need any money for, well, when it comes to banks, people don't need 20% down. People are, I'm not trying to be mean, but people who can't afford to get that 20% down probably aren't going to be good house repayment loan repairs. So to compensate for that, loans go up, house prices go up. It's a kind of a kicking the can down the road. I'm not saying it's, as obviously I lean center right. I'm not saying it's a bad philosophy. I just think that it's relied on too much. Now, again, I do have a bias, obviously. I just stated that. When it comes to right-leaning, Republican kind of policy, especially now, you can see it heavily with President Trump's like policies. We're going to set up a system where we can succeed in the future. The problem is, it's nice, the idea is nice, like we're going to set up the systems for a better future. The problem is, we're going to feel the pain now. So as opposed to Democratic policies where you'll feel the pain later, or for Republican policies, you're going to feel the pain now. It's kind of like the concept of going to the gym. Like, the whole like no pain, no gain. Problem is, you can't have too much pain. And
Yeah.
yeah, you
Hey,
do
hey man, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I just tore my bicep on the preacher curl.
yeah, you see,
What?
yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
my, oh,
No pain,
oh,
no gain.
oh! Don't bring it up. I've
What?
seen. It's so weird seeing the muscle like just snap
Pop.
underneath skin. Oh man, I don't
Yeah.
like it. Or
Hey
like,
man, no pain, no gain.
or like
Yeah, but
people who,
pain,
oh,
pain and no gain.
or people who, what's called underestimate the leg press, where you
Yeah,
lean
and they
on your
just snap
back.
their knee backwards.
Oh,
Ah.
not good. You know what I mean? So, but granted, I'm 30 years old, so I don't have much experience. I don't know what that pain threshold is. Personally, I think it's too much right now. We're about to go to war. Not just, okay, go to war. Congress declares war. President Trump has sent a lot of military members over. Talks of more boots on the ground. That is resources taken from the United States to the military. So prices are going to go up there. This is a war over oil and energy uses. Energy usage. That's 20% of the world's energy uses. Prices have just now gone up again. Now, we are going to force. I mean, you took out the loans. You know what I mean? You took out the loans. It's not like you were told you were never going to have to pay it ever. Well, Joe Biden's administration, we're going to exclude that part. You know what I mean? You grew up knowing you had to pay back the loans. But now we're going to force, what was it, 40 plus million Americans to continue paying those loans and garnishing 9 million of those Americans' income by at least 15%. While I do think, again, pretty anti-war, while I do think if we're going to get into conflict with Iran, we need to, go big or go home. I don't think this much is necessary. At least when we just talked about the student loan thing. Like, I feel like after you can't predict how long these wars are going to be. We were in Iraq for like 20 years. But how do I put this? I think the problem is we should have gotten our energy situations sorted out before we told the U.S. population that you're going to be garnishing your wages, or we will be garnishing your wages. Again, I think it's a good policy that people are paying back their loans, but I think we're doing too much right now. Thoughts?
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so
I don't know. The oil stuff is. I don't know. I feel like a lot of that stuff is still developing. I know that the prices are hitting in a lot of places. I don't know how long it's going to stick around. I've been seeing some stuff about the price of oil tanking and some due to some unknown reason. I don't know how true that is. But yeah, I don't know. This war just feels like a very foolish decision.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, oh yeah, we're calling the bluff with NATO. It's like, but this was like maybe not the way to do that. This is like,
Yeah. I mean,
man, if you succeed in properly calling their bluff, it's like a trying to go with a good. It's kind of like testing your insurance policy by convincingly burning your house down. Like, sure, they paid out and you got away with it, but also, you just burnt your house down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, it might get rebuilt in the future, but your premiums are still gonna go up. You're still gonna have to deal with a whole bunch of like crazy fallout. Like, good job, you got away with it. The insurance company that thought that they could get one over on you and they would never have to pay out your arson, your home insurance. You really showed them, man.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're living in a hotel for the next, with your parents or wherever for like the next, you know, 5 to
2 years.
10 months, 2 years, however long it takes to build your new house or rebuild your old house, and then also all of the stuff that you owned is gone. And like, sure, you're right. They might be able to replace some of the stuff, but like, did you keep an exact itemized list of receipts as to the specific items that you owned? Oh, well, you owned a toaster. You didn't tell us which toaster you owned. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get cheapo toaster. Or, oh, you had a like irreplaceable family heirloom that broke. Well,
Well, we
too
can't buy
bad. We
it.
don't have, yeah, we don't keep, we can't buy you an irreplaceable family heirloom, big dog. Like, even if you succeed, you're still failing. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. Is like this was maybe the wrong avenue to test this in. Um,
Yeah. I
I don't
thought
know. The personal opinion that this all feels like a pretty foolish thing, and the conspiracy part of my brain is like, Epstein files distraction. Oh yay.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly, I thought we were on a good track with like getting our oil refinery back from Venezuela. Like, obviously, the deal with the Saudi Arabia was up. They're not going to. They're not trading with U.S. dollar, and other countries are bidding for it. So I thought us, because I heard, again, scrolling TikTok and X, so take it with as many
Yeah.
grains of salt as you need. But I've heard that the amount of oil being produced in Venezuela is almost on par with the amount being produced in Saudi Arabia. At least like
Yeah.
whatever. So I'm like, okay, then we've just created. When we talked about this, when it comes to like putting tariffs on other countries, I think we should have had our own infrastructure first before we implemented the tariffs. That way, there's at least some competition, as opposed to just putting tariffs with no competition. So then the companies outside of the U.S. would just increase their prices because there's no competition. In my mind, we've just created our own internal infrastructure with Venezuela. This is something we've already put taxpayer dollars for. We just took it back. Fair. And if we can believe certain TikToks or whatever, the people of Venezuela are happy about it. Whatever. Uh, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
uh, again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Conspiracy theory brain. I think they're trying to destabilize that area so that people will have to not just trade oil in U.S. dollars, but B, have to buy it from us.
Yeah.
If I'm, which that was my original theory. But if that's the case, why would you call out, other countries of NATO to help you secure that area? Because if Iran wants to cut off 20% of the world's oil, all the U.S. has to do is here's 20% that they've taken from you
Yep.
at
Well, I mean,
equal price.
what's that old adage? The trick that rich people know, poor people do not, is that rich people never spend their own money. So
Yeah.
it might be like, well, why are we sending in these other nations? Why are we having NATO do it? Because why would we do it when we can get them to do it? Like, why would I
Yeah,
expend
yeah.
my military resources when I could just have people who are one, closer to the region, two, more affected by it, and three, have an incentive to do it? Just do it for me.
Yeah,
Why would I try to put out my own
yeah.
house fire when I have the fire department?
Yeah, so again, that was if we're gonna get conspiratorial here. That was my thing, but I guess calling out NATO and now 20 nations are saying they're gonna help us kind of threw my theory out the window. So we'll continue on from there.
Speaking
Uh,
of Strait of Hormuz stuff,
yeah. Oh no,
Iran. Oh,
oh no, sorry. You continue. I had an ad.
oh, no, go.
No, no, it was an ad. So I had to click off of it. You were saying, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
the
I was like, I
well,
was, I
actually
was like,
here.
oh, damn, we got sponsors already. All right.
No, no.